A DBMS provides means to making sure that only authorized user can access data at permitted times. Remember, a lot of people might need to have access to this database because they can share data, but we need to make sure that only authorized people who have access to the database. So the IT department can actually come up with a set of rules, and they can design access privileges, and also they can use the principle of least privilege. Database management systems also provides a variety of techniques to be able to restore the database to a usable form in case it is damaged or destroyed. Some of the techniques that you can use in the database is backup, log, recovery utility, as well as continuous backup. Also, we talked about various databases that are out there. Relational database models is a little bit different than object-oriented, and also it's a little bit different than multidimensional databases. First, before we get to various database models, let's see what is a data model. It consists of rules and standards that define how the database organizes data. So before we can actually implement our database, we have to model our database. So it's like a blueprint. And we do that by creating entity relationship diagrams and actually having a map of our tables, and then actually implement this into a database. A relational database stores data into the table format. And also each table consists of rows and columns. Each row has a primary key and each column has a unique name. A relationship is basically linking the tables together. So in order to be able to retrieve the data or manipulate the data, we use the structured query language, which is a language that allows users to be able to manage, update, and retrieve data. And as we have talked about it before, it's an English-like command. Object-oriented database, however, stores data in terms of objects. So relational databases stores data in terms of tables. Object-oriented databases stores data in terms of objects. Object-oriented databases uses the object query language to be able to manipulate and retrieve data. Multidimensional databases, however, can store data in more than 2 dimensions. Sometimes we call it a hypercube. It can consolidate data much faster than relational databases. And a lot of our databases is actually multidimensional because it can retrieve data much faster. Another terminology that we need to be familiar in terms of the databases is called data warehouse. Data warehouse is just a huge database that can store data, and also it can store the historical data that you need in order to analyze something. For example, when you go to your bank, maybe you can actually ask for 1 year, of your statement at the bank, but then the rest of it will be stored somewhere else, which would be in a data warehouse, and the bank needs to probably take some time to retrieve that because it's going to be with thousands or millions of other records that are out there. And normally they get those in order to get the trends of the data or also get the historical analysis out of it. Other type of databases that we can think about is web databases. It's a database on the web that allow us to, for example, maybe we can shop for something, we can buy our books, sell our books. Also, we can search for jobs. That's also recorded in a database. We can also make airline reservations, also register for our classes, and check the grade for the semester. They all being recorded in some sort of a database. So the web databases are very huge right now, and they are being stored everywhere, in a hospital, in a bank, in a university, even in a small department store. YouTube is a huge online databases of all of these videos that people post there. And the last part of this chapter, we will talk about database administration. it is very important to know how to design a database. So designing a database needs to have series of guidelines. First, we have to think about what is the purpose of this database. Then we have to be able to design our table. Before we design our table, we need to actually model it. So we need to get that blueprint. And then we need to actually make sure that we record each data type correctly for our tables and all of that. So we need to also identify a unique identifier for each of our records. And then also we need to determine the relationship between these tables, and then link them in terms of the primary key, foreign key, and all that. And we will do that in this class. Database analysts and administrators are responsible for managing and coordinating of all the database activities. Database analyst decides on proper field placement, define data relationship, and identify user access privileges. Database administrator, however, creates and maintains the data. He is also responsible for the data dictionary, also is responsible for the security. He's also needing to monitor the performance of the database and making sure that he has set up a backup and a recovery procedure in case there is a disaster that happens. The database administrator is responsible to actually get the data back and recover the data. Database administrators, they can actually interact with database, they can maintain the database, and also they can identify rules for example, who needs to have access to this database. Also, they need to set up the security and logs and things like that. So for example, if somebody changed the data, they know who changed that, when, and how. So that is it for this chapter. Let me summarize some of the concepts that we have learned in this chapter. First, we talked about what is data, what is information, what is valuable information. We talked about methods for maintaining a high quality of data. We also talked about assessing the quality of valuable information. We talked about the advantages of organizing the data in a database. We talked about various types of databases that are out there. We also talked about the roles and responsibilities of the database administrator versus the database analyst. This is actually chapter 0 that we have talked about. So for this week, I just want you guys to focus on this chapter. I'm not going to put any more lecture up. I just want you guys to focus on this chapter. Also, please make sure that you introduce yourself. And I need everybody to introduce themselves before January 17th, because I will take that and apply it for your attendance, because I need to record the attendance for this class before the end of the week. Also, I need to make sure that everybody have a copy to a Microsoft Access. And if you have it, great. If not, I'm gonna put, I have to actually ask the IT department. I have to give the list of the students to the IT department so that they can add them to the MSDNA. And then you can actually download it for free. So I will do that this week, and I will send you a notification. So please read chapter 1 for next week. Read this chapter, making sure that you understand this. Do your introduction for yourself, and also making sure that if you can actually install Microsoft Access, preferably Microsoft Access 2013, because also it's a group project. I don't want everybody to have different versions. So Microsoft Access 2013 is the one that we prefer you guys to have. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye. If you have any question though, just feel free to send me an email, ask me, or come and meet with me in person on the office hours. Take care. Bye-bye.